Repetition builds reality, not intensity, not a single strong decision. What you repeat daily becomes what your system accepts as normal. And what feels normal slowly becomes what feels true, even when it was never consciously chosen. The mind does not organize life as isolated moments. It organizes patterns. One event is information. Repeated events become instructions. And instructions, when not questioned, become the architecture of your perception. Your nervous system is not designed to detect objective truth. It is designed to predict safety. And safety is calculated through repetition. What happens often enough becomes expected, and what is expected feels stable. When you hear the same message repeatedly, especially early in life, you stop evaluating it. You internalize it. Over time, repetition converts external conditioning into internal identity. Neural pathways strengthen through use. The brain is economical. It reinforces what is practiced. Thoughts repeated frequently require less energy, and eventually they feel automatic, inevitable, unquestionable. Identity is not formed through a single defining experience. It is shaped through small repeated confirmations. Each time you act in alignment with a belief, you reinforce it, whether it empowers you or limits you. If you repeatedly silence yourself to maintain peace, your body adapts to that strategy. Expression begins to feel risky. Containment begins to feel intelligent, and slowly, adaptation turns into personality. Repetition does not need to be dramatic to be powerful. It only needs to be consistent. Subtle daily behaviors shape your internal landscape more deeply than rare, intense events ever could. Most people search for transformation in breakthrough moments. But transformation is rarely explosive. It begins when you interrupt a repetition your system has been running without awareness. Every environment you stay in repeatedly influences your perception. The tone of conversations, the expectations around you, the emotional climate. Frequency quietly edits your sense of what is possible. The brain prefers efficiency over accuracy. If a pattern repeats often enough, it stops questioning it. It assumes continuity. Repetition creates cognitive shortcuts, and those shortcuts quietly shape your interpretation of reality. The amygdala does not analyze meaning. It analyzes repetition. If an emotional tone appears frequently, your system prepares for it automatically. Anticipation becomes habit, and habit becomes identity. Emotional responses practiced repeatedly become faster and stronger. The body does not wait for logic. It reacts according to what has been rehearsed. Reaction speed is often just repetition in motion. If you repeatedly experience dismissal when you speak, your nervous system associates expression with risk. You may later call yourself introverted, unaware that repetition shaped that label. Plasticity means your brain adapts to what you practice most. This is powerful, but it is also dangerous, because what you rehearse unconsciously can solidify into a structure you never intentionally chose. Repetition lowers emotional resistance. The first time something feels uncomfortable, you notice it. After the 10th time, you tolerate it. After the 100th time, you call it normal. This is how unhealthy dynamics become familiar. Not because they are safe, but because they are predictable. And predictability, to the nervous system, often feels like safety. Your perception of yourself is also shaped by repetition. The more you confirm a limitation through behavior, the more solid it feels. You are not discovering who you are. You are reinforcing it. Repetition shapes attention. The brain highlights what it expects to see. If you repeatedly focus on failure, your perception will filter for evidence that confirms it. Over time, repeated thoughts create emotional states, and repeated emotional states create personality patterns. Personality is often just repetition stabilized. Repetition does not ask for your permission. It does not announce itself. It works quietly, stabilizing patterns that feel familiar, even when they slowly reduce your range of movement. The most dangerous repetitions are the ones you call personality. I am just like this. I have always been this way. These are not truths. They are rehearsals that became permanent. When you repeat self-doubt often enough, it stops sounding like doubt. It sounds like realism. The line between conditioning and identity disappears. The system protects what is repeated, even if it limits you, because change threatens stability. And stability, even if small, feels safer than expansion. You may think you fear failure. Often, you fear disrupting repetition, because repetition provides structure, even when that structure is a cage. If you repeatedly choose what is familiar, even when it hurts, you train your nervous system to equate discomfort with belonging. Pain becomes proof of normality. The mind resists what it has not practiced. Freedom feels unstable when your system has rehearsed limitation for years. Expansion feels wrong before it feels powerful. Repetition narrows perception. You stop seeing alternatives. You start believing there are none. And what you do not perceive, you cannot choose. The longer a pattern runs, the more invisible it becomes. Not because it is subtle, but because it is constant. Constant exposure erases contrast. At some point, repetition stops shaping behavior and starts shaping destiny. Not in a mystical way, but in a structural one. You live inside what you have practiced. Repetition can imprison you, but it can also liberate you. The same mechanism that built your limitation can build your expansion. The difference is awareness. Once you see the pattern, you are no longer completely inside it. The moment you interrupt a repeated reaction, even once, something shifts. Not because the world changes, but because the automatic sequence breaks. And in that break, there is space. Power does not begin with confidence. It begins with interruption. The decision to not repeat the same response. The refusal to rehearse the same emotional script again. Your nervous system will resist this interruption. It will signal discomfort, doubt, even fear. But discomfort is not danger. Often, it is just unfamiliarity. When you choose differently once, it feels unstable. When you choose differently twice, it feels intentional. When you repeat it consistently, it becomes your new baseline. Reality begins to reorganize when repetition changes. People respond differently. Situations shift, not because you forced them, but because your pattern no longer invites the same outcome. This is how identity evolves, not through affirmation, but through consistent alternative behavior. What you practice with awareness becomes power. Repetition built the version of you that feels automatic. Conscious repetition builds the version of you that feels deliberate. One is inherited, the other is chosen. The mind will try to pull you back to the old rhythm. It prefers predictability. But every time you resist the automatic return, you strengthen a different pathway. Power is not loud transformation. It is disciplined repetition in a new direction, quiet, consistent, unapologetic. Breaking repetition is not dramatic. It is deliberate. It is choosing, again and again, not to rehearse what once defined you. At first it feels artificial, almost forced. But what feels artificial today can become embodied tomorrow through consistency. When you consciously repeat a new response, you are not pretending. You are rewiring. The brain does not distinguish between inherited patterns and intentional ones. It strengthens what is practiced, regardless of origin. The power you are searching for is not hidden in motivation. It is hidden in disciplined repetition. The quiet decision to respond differently, even when your system pulls you toward the familiar script. At some point, the new pattern begins to feel stable, not because it is effortless, but because it has been rehearsed enough to become natural. This is when identity shifts. Not loudly, structurally. Repetition built your current reality. Repetition can build another. The only question is whether you remain loyal to what you have practiced, or whether you are ready to practice something that changes the structure entirely. In the next episode, we examine what happens when awareness becomes irreversible.